I was walking to work this morning, like I always do, and I saw my neighbor again. She was there at her window, waving at me like she used to every morning. You know how some people have routines? That was hers, every single day, like clockwork. Rain or shine, she'd be there with her little smile, waving at me. And yeah, it was nice, you know, one of those things you get used to and don't think about too much. But here's the thing, she died 2 weeks ago. I know what you're thinking. Maybe I'm tired, maybe I saw something that wasn't there. Maybe someone moved into her place, and they just happened to look like her. I thought of all that too. I mean, there's gotta be some logical explanation, right? Except, it was her. I'd know that face anywhere. Let me backtrack a bit. Her name was Mrs. Talbot, and she was like the perfect old neighbor type. Always smiling, always baking cookies for the neighborhood kids, always chatting about her garden or her cats. She had these huge glasses that made her eyes look twice their size, and she wore these old-fashioned floral dresses that made her look like she stepped out of a black and white movie. I remember when I heard she passed. It hit the neighborhood hard. She had no family, so everyone kind of adopted her, you know? We had this little vigil for her, and the landlord cleaned out her apartment a few days later. After that, her place stayed empty. Nobody moved in or anything. So, yeah, seeing her wave at me this morning, it was like a punch to the gut. I froze in the middle of the sidewalk, staring up at her window, and there she was. Her face was pale, and her smile looked different. Not bad or anything, just off, like the way someone smiles when they're pretending to be happy. She waved, same as always, and I swear I almost waved back out of habit. Then I remembered, she's dead. And when that thought hit me, my legs just started moving on their own. I didn't even think about it. I just kept walking, trying to act normal, like I didn't see her. But the whole time, I felt her eyes on me. At work, I couldn't focus. Every time I tried to do something, my brain kept going back to Mrs. Talbot. I kept telling myself I was imagining things. Maybe I was half asleep, or maybe it was some trick of the light. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. When I got home that night, I avoided looking at her window. I didn't even glance in that direction. Instead, I went straight inside and locked the door. I sat on my couch, trying to distract myself with TV, but it didn't work. I kept thinking about her, that pale face, and that weird smile. I decided to call one of my neighbors, this guy named Dave. He's kind of the neighborhood watchdog, always knows what's going on with everyone. If anyone had heard about someone new moving into her place, it'd be him. "Hey Dave," I said, "quick question. Did anyone move into Mrs. Talbot's apartment?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "No, man," he said. "That place is still empty." "Why?" I didn't know what to say, so I just made up some excuse about hearing noises from her house. Dave didn't seem too concerned and said it was probably just the pipes or something. But I knew better. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing noises outside, like shuffling footsteps on the sidewalk. I told myself it was just the wind or some stray cat, but it didn't help. I felt like a little kid again, hiding under the covers from the monsters in the closet. Then, around midnight, I heard it. 3 soft knocks on my front door. At first, I thought I imagined it. I stayed perfectly still, holding my breath, waiting to see if it would happen again. And then it did. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Whoever or whatever it was didn't knock again. But a few seconds later, I heard the sound of footsteps moving away. The next morning, I forced myself to look at her window as I left for work. I didn't want to, but it was like I had to. And there she was, smiling and waving at me like nothing had happened. Except this time, she wasn't alone. Standing behind her, just barely visible through the curtains, was a shadowy figure. I couldn't see any details, just a tall, dark outline. It wasn't moving, but somehow I could feel it watching me. I didn't go to work that day. I couldn't. I just walked aimlessly around the city, trying to wrap my head around what was happening. I thought about calling the police, but what would I say? "Hi, I think my dead neighbor is haunting me." Yeah, that'd go over well. When I got home that evening, her window was dark. No sign of her, no shadowy figure, For a second I felt relieved, maybe it was over, but then, as I unlocked my door, I noticed something on the ground. It was a small, neatly folded piece of paper. I picked it up and unfolded it, and my blood ran cold. In shaky, almost childlike handwriting it said, "Come visit me. I'm lonely." I dropped the note and ran inside, slamming the door behind me. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely lock the deadbolt. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every little sound made me jump. The next morning, I couldn't bring myself to go to work. I called in sick, mumbled something about a stomach bug, and just stayed home. I spent most of the morning on the couch, flipping through TV channels like some zombie. Movies, talk shows, even reruns of old sitcoms. I just needed something to keep my mind off her. But no matter how hard I tried, I kept glancing at the clock, dreading the evening. Around lunchtime, I decided I couldn't deal with being alone anymore. I texted Leo and Ryan to come over, told them I had a day off and wanted to hang out. I didn't tell them the real reason, of course, didn't need them thinking I'd lost my marbles. Leo showed up first, grinning and holding a case of beer. "I figured you'd need these," he said, winking as he set them on the counter. "Perfect timing," I said, forcing a chuckle. Ryan showed up not long after, holding a bag of chips and some candy. "Snacks and beer, what more could you need?" he said, flopping onto the couch like it was his own. "Thanks for coming," I said, cracking open a beer and handing one to Leo. "No problem," Leo said, popping the cap off his bottle. "But seriously, what's up? You don't usually call us over for a random hangout." "Yeah," Ryan added, grabbing a handful of chips. "Something is going on. Spill it." I shrugged, trying to play it cool. "Just needed some company, that's all. Work's been a lot lately." They didn't look convinced, but they let it go. We spent the afternoon watching movies, drinking beers, and goofing around like we always did. For a while, it actually felt good, normal, even. But then the movie ended, and the conversation drifted into quieter territory. "So," Leo said, leaning back and taking a swig of his beer, "you gonna tell us what's really going on, or did you just call us here for free beers?" I laughed, but it felt hollow. "It's nothing," I said. "Come on, dude," Ryan said. "We've known you forever. You're acting off. Just tell us." I sighed, staring at my beer like it had all the answers. "Okay, fine, but you have to promise not to laugh." They both nodded, their expressions serious now. So I told them. I told them about Mrs. Talbot, about seeing her at her window, about the shadowy figure and the note I found. By the time I finished, Leo was sitting up straight, and Ryan's face had gone pale. "Dude, that's freaky," Leo said. Ryan nodded. "You're sure it was her? I mean, maybe you just saw someone else and your mind filled in the blanks?" "It was her," I said firmly. "I know what I saw." Leo took another swig of his beer, frowning. "Okay, but ghosts aren't real, right? Like, there's gotta be some explanation for this." "Yeah, like stress or something," Ryan added, though he didn't sound convinced. "I don't know," I said, running a hand through my hair, "but it wasn't my imagination. It was real." We sat there for a while, the beers growing warm in our hands. Finally, Leo broke the silence. "Look, whatever it is, you're not dealing with it alone. If she shows up again, call us. We'll figure it out together." Ryan nodded. "Yeah, man, you've got us. We'll kick her ghostly butt if we have to." I couldn't help but laugh at that, even though I didn't really feel like laughing. "Thanks, guys," I said. Seriously. They stayed until the evening, and for a while things felt okay. But when they left, the unease crept back in, like a shadow I couldn't get rid of. I locked the door behind them, checked it twice, and spent the rest of the night glued to the couch, listening to every creak and groan of the house. Then, around midnight, the knocking came again. I froze, my beer halfway to my mouth. The sound was soft, almost polite, but it sent chills down my body. I grabbed my phone and called Leo, my hand shaking so bad I almost dropped it. "She's back," I whispered as soon as he answered. "What? Who's back?" he mumbled, clearly half asleep. "Mrs. Talbot," I said. "She's outside. I can hear her knocking." There was a pause. "Okay, hang tight. I'm coming over." "Hurry," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Leo and Ryan showed up about 15 minutes later, looking groggy but determined. Leo was holding a baseball bat, and Ryan had a flashlight. "Where is she?" Leo asked, his voice low. I pointed at the door. "She was knocking, I swear." Leo looked at the street, his grip tightening on the bat. "There's no one out there," he said. "What?" I got up and looked for myself. The street was empty, the porch bathed in pale moonlight. "Maybe she left," Ryan said, though he sounded just as uneasy as I felt. We sat around for a while, waiting to see if anything else would happen, but the night stayed quiet. Eventually, they convinced me to try and get some sleep. "We'll crash here," Leo said, "just in case." I nodded, too exhausted to argue. The next morning, I woke up to find Leo and Ryan already gone. They'd left a note on the counter. "Call us if anything else happens. Don't worry, we've got your back." I smiled a little, feeling grateful for them. For the first time in days, I didn't feel so alone. I went to the window, half expecting to see her again, but when I looked outside, there was nothing. No shadowy figure in her window, no sign of her standing in the yard, just the usual quiet of the neighborhood in the early morning. It felt normal. The rest of the day went by peacefully. I cleaned up the empty beer bottles, threw out the chip bags, and even managed to focus on some work emails. It was like the air in the house had shifted, lighter somehow. By the time evening rolled around, I realized something. I didn't feel scared anymore. I couldn't explain why, but I just knew she wasn't coming back. Maybe Leo and Ryan being here that night made the difference. Maybe having other people around had pushed away whatever was haunting me. Or maybe she just decided to leave me alone. I didn't really care about the why. All I knew was that I could finally sleep without jumping at every creak and knock. That night, I stood by the window, looking out at the darkened street. I didn't see her. Then I locked the door, turned off the lights, and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept like a rock, and I haven't seen her since.